Hi friends, this is Tina and welcome to my new video. So in this video we are setting up my weekly spreads for June, and I'm actually really excited about this because I think they all turned out pretty nice, and I'm excited to use my bullet journal for the first time in a long time, which is a big deal. So my theme for June is summer cottages and finish summer and midsummer. And I'm going to be linking my June plan with me video down in the description and in the cards if you want to see that and you haven't seen me set up the theme already. So I'm actually starting this setup with cutting my tabs and cutting my pages in general. I added one Dutch door here as well, so I decided to just cut everything here in the beginning. So yeah, I started with my tabs and I just cut them to the sides of my weekly spreads, and I made them 7 by 1 dot spaces. I don't necessarily need these tabs in my weeklies, but I just decided to include them just so my pages would look a little bit more interesting and fun. And after I was done with my tabs, I decided to cut the Dutch door spread that I was talking about before. So I made this horizontal Dutch door in one of my spreads, and I just cut it out from the center. And I always like to say this, but whenever you are making Dutch door that you are, cutting near the center of the spread, always do it really carefully so you won't rip the threads that are in your notebook. I did it with scissors, but you can use a crafting knife. So yeah, my theme for June was these red cabins, so I started off by painting those in my first weekly spread. And for my first weekly, I decided to go with my really much used layout where I'm just including these boxes of dailies and also boxes of paintings. And that might sound really weird, but you will see what I mean later. So I have 3 smaller paintings in this weekly spread, and I wanted to make sure that all of the paintings were a little bit different from each other so they would look more interesting. And for the first one, I kind of painted something similar as in my cover page. So there is a bigger building in the forefront, and then there are smaller ones in the back. And the way I did it, I just took red watercolor and painted the base of the houses, and then added some little shadows on the right sides of the cabins and underneath the roof area. And I also added these little lines on all of the houses to represent some wood patterns. This was such an easy style. I really didn't do much with the patterns or the houses. That's what I wanted to do with this whole theme. I wanted it to look a little bit more loose, and I didn't want to focus on the smaller details way too much as I often do. So yeah, it was kind of almost therapeutic, and it also taught me a lot when I was able to just stop and not overwork on details. But yeah, for the ground, I added green watercolor and made these little grass strokes. Nothing too interesting. I'm going to be painting flowers or these white dots on top later, so you won't be seeing the grass that much. So don't obsess over making it perfect or anything like that. And I also painted a little bush or little forest area behind the houses. I liked doing that later on when I kind of figured out what I wanted to do with this theme, and I loved the look of adding just a tiny bit more of greenery and landscape behind all the houses. So yeah, I also made a little fence that is on the forefront and just made these little windows and added the flowers with white gouache. And that is it for the first painting. I did pretty much the same things in all of my other paintings, but I just wanted to make sure that the houses were maybe in just slightly different angles, and maybe the landscape or the greenery was just a tiny bit different so they wouldn't look all identical. Like I said in my last video, I did not use my journal at all in May, and now that the month has changed, I've started using my journal a lot more again. And I'm actually really happy about that because it just means that there is something in this theme or in this vibe of a setup that just works for me better. And I just want to say to you that even if you don't use your journal much, I really hope you don't feel guilty about that, because I know it's really easy to go in this mindset of feeling guilty for not using your bullet journal if you have already set up your whole theme and your whole month. But it is totally normal to not use your journal for a little while. Maybe if it continues for a longer time, maybe you should figure out what is wrong with the setup that you're using or which parts of it you like. So when you set up a new monthly theme or new bullet journal, maybe you can change some things up, because obviously if it just doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you, at least in a way that you are doing it. But taking a break for like a month or something is totally normal, and maybe you just haven't needed it that much, or the way that you are planning and tracking things is just not working for you right now at this moment. And maybe you will just fall back to it next month and use it a bit more, and you will find that there is actually nothing wrong with the things that you are doing. Maybe just the timing wasn't right. And that definitely happens to me sometimes, but not in the way that it happened to me last month. So I was a little bit alarmed about the fact that I did not use my journal at all. But yeah, I'm already excited to use this setup, and I love these weeklies, and I love how summery it makes me feel, and I am so excited. But when I was done with all of the 3 paintings, I started working on the actual layout of my first weekly spread. And I wrote June with this font that I used for my whole setup, and I made a small calendar underneath that, but I wrote 1 to 5. I made so many weird mistakes with my small calendars in my weeklies. You will see that later as well. But luckily I can just use my white Gelly Roll pen to fix any mistakes and write over them. I really don't understand why I thought 5 comes after 2. I wrote the days of the week with a cursive font on my daily boxes, and I also added a tiny little dot with my Archer and Olive acrylograph, and I wrote the date on top. Then I outlined all of the boxes that didn't have the craft paper, and yeah, I just really love this layout. I've used it so many times in the past, and it just works for me, and I think it's so nice to look at, and it's not a bad side effect that it usually performs really well on Instagram. But since I made the tabs, I also wanted to color them in. I didn't do anything too exciting. I just colored them in with the same acrylograph color. And I also wrote the weeks on them. I don't really need that detail, to be honest, but I just felt like it looked a little bit better when I had the week numbers there as well. And because I made the tabs, the left side of this spread will be, shown from all of the other spreads as well. So I decided to glue a little piece of this washi tape here to kind of have a backdrop for the tabs when you are looking at the spread from other weekly spreads. But that is it for this spread. I really like how it turned out, and I love the colors and the summery feel that it has. But now we are setting up my next weekly spread. So I was using my Pigma Micron to write my header, and this lettering is, by the way, inspired by Therese T, who I will link in the description. Here I made the same kind of mistake again. I mean, I did not write the dates wrong. I just made them in completely different spot than I was supposed to. So I just glued a piece of craft paper on top and also added a piece of that same paper next to it to have my notes for this week. I made little daily circles for all of the daily boxes and wrote the dates and the days of the week next to them. I really liked doing this no ruler look for this month and made these kind of double lined boxes. I really like how that looked, and it was nice to work like this without having to make everything perfect. And I think I will definitely go without a ruler in the future as well. Maybe not always, but I think I will gravitate towards that look a little bit more. So for the bottom right side, I decided to paint a red cabin again, but I wanted to make it just a tiny bit differently this time. So I made this little extension to the front of the cabin that has the door. It's not really that much different, but I just felt like all of my cabins were pretty much rectangles and didn't have any extra details to them. So maybe this was at least a tiny bit different. I also made this little blob of trees or a bush behind the house. I noticed that it looked a little bit weird in this painting. I don't know, the color turned out to be a little bit more brown than I wanted, but it's completely fine. I just again painted the ground and then I started working on the little fence after that. By the way, if you have not followed me yet, make sure to do that if you like bullet journal content and just want to see more in the future. I am currently starting to work on my new bullet journal setup that I will be posting as a video a little later this June, and I'm so excited about that. I am so excited to start a new bullet journal, and especially now that I've had a little bit of a problem using my journal, I feel like it will come in handy to have a new bullet journal so I can almost like start new and have a new beginning and just like do a 180 with my bullet journaling style. Maybe not style, but maybe bullet journaling habits, so I can maybe have a little bit more motivation to use it in the future. And this new bullet journal change just comes at a perfect time for me. I decided to include in this painting some lupines, and lupines are one flower that always remind me of summer because in my hometown they always are growing next to the roads, and yeah, they're pretty much like a countryside flower that we have so many of here in Finland. They're actually classified as an invasive species, but we still have so many of them and they are really pretty. And yeah, I just decided to include them here. And again, I went with the really loose style. I did not want to obsess over the small details again, and I think it turned out fine. Definitely not my favorite thing in this painting, but I still like that I decided to include something a little bit different. I painted them with gouache because I just knew that with watercolor they wouldn't really pop out, so it worked out better like that. Lastly, I just quickly added these small lines to my daily boxes to kind of divide the boxes with tasks and my daily journal entries, but that is it for this weekly spread. And now I will be setting up the last weekly spreads in this setup. And those will be my last pages in my whole notebook, which makes me feel a little bit sad but also excited. So in June there are 5 weeks instead of 4, so I decided to make a little Dutch door for the last weeks because I just didn't want to paint one extra spread in this notebook. So as you saw in the beginning, I cut this page horizontally and the space that is on the top will be shown from both sides of the Dutch door. So whatever week is going on, you can still see the painting that I'm making on the upper portion of this page. So of course we are going with the same cabins again, but I am including some more water and greenery in this painting, and I really love how this turned out. So I made 3 different little cabins here in this painting, and I would love to think that the one that's on the left is maybe the main building, and the one that's in the middle maybe could be a sauna or maybe a guest house or something, and the one on the right could be like a shed or a smaller sauna building or something like that. I ended up kind of thinking about this like little story every time that I was painting something in this setup. I don't know why, but my mind just started to, make its own stories in my head. And I also thought about who was staying in there and what they were doing and things like that. But I guess that's a good thing when you are making art, that your mind is also kind of inspired by the things that you're creating. I noticed that I painted these brown fences quite a lot, but I felt like they always made the painting look a little bit more interesting, especially because the painting does not have that much outside the cottages. So I thought it would look really good if there was something in the front of the painting. So yeah, I made a little, or actually a big fence here as well. And then I took this washed out blue watercolor and painted the water behind the cabins. By the way, I was also using my Tombow Fudenosuke black heart tip pen to make all the windows for my paintings, or make the insides of the windows, and I would highly suggest doing this if you have some black spots in your painting that you don't really care about painting in, because these kinds of really small details are really annoying to do with black watercolor or gouache, so definitely take your black marker and just get it over with. So when the painting itself was done, I started focusing on the weeklies. So I decided to paint these daily circles for all of my daily boxes with the same acrylograph marker, and then I just made these long boxes for each day. And as you can see, the little circles are popping out of the page, and I really love how that looks when you are actually flipping through the pages and looking to the other side of the Dutch door. I again didn't use any ruler, and this was just a really simple way of doing my setup. There is really nothing interesting in this whole layout, but I really like it. And last thing I did, I added this little craft paper piece on the other side of the tabs because it just looked really empty. I might add my monthly review page here. But that is it for this weekly spreads video, and I will quickly just flip through all the pages that I made in this one. If you like this video, remember to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, leave a thumbs up, and maybe leave a flower emoji down in the comments if you are still here. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in my next one. Bye bye!